Hi, I'm Dan Strano, technical staff member at Unitary Fund, developer of Metric, a web app for quantum computing benchmarks, and Crack or QRAC, which is a gate-based quantum computer simulator, both under the Unitary Fund heading of software projects. And today I'm going to introduce you to unitaryHACK. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of open source and how to get started using it. And we're going to lead you through the process of, if you are a first-time contributor, how you would get started finding an issue for the hackathon, forking a repo, and ultimately making a pull request so that you can hopefully in the end have your pull request accepted and win bounties. So unitaryHACK is a yearly hackathon run by Unitary Fund. It happens around this time of year every year. This year it will happen from May 29th to June 12th. And if you go to unitaryhack.dev on the web, you can find resources on getting started in text form, as well as information about participating projects that you can contribute to during the hackathon. And if your pull request is accepted, there are cash bounties as well as swag to be had for your contribution to living, breathing, real-life quantum open source software projects that are in use by thousands of people around the world today. So it might be worth highlighting that GitHub itself provides substantial documentation on how to get started with the GitHub workflow. It's very tied to what otherwise might be known as agile methodology in a lot of cases, where basically the process is you identify an issue to work on. It might be assigned to you. You create a fork and or a branch of a repository as appropriate to isolate your work from the main line branch that is in use as end user software potentially. You complete your work, you open a pull request, a pull request review is started where maintainers are expected to criticize your work. It's not that you've done anything wrong, it's just that this is the opportunity to get the code right before it goes into a repository permanently as production code. And then if you're participating in the hackathon in this case, if your PR is accepted, if you're the first accepted PR that closes the issue, you do a bounty. So you can win swag or money. But here at docs.github.com, you can find more about the GitHub workflow, and this is a good resource if you're comfortable with text-based instruction for learning the basic idea of how this workflow works. But we're going to lead you through an example with the Metric app repository under the Unitary Fund heading of projects. We're going to show you basically the workflow that you're going to carry out in order to make a pull request to a repository like Metric, which is actually participating in the hackathon. So first, come into the issue. Well, actually, absolutely first, you need to create a GitHub account. So if you don't have a GitHub account yet, this is 100% a requirement to participate in the hackathon. I mean, by all means, you can spectate, but there's no practical way to contribute code without going through GitHub tools, the web interface, and maybe either the desktop client if you're on Windows, for example, or via command line. I'm going to be demonstrating command line today, although the same basic workflow applies if you use the graphical user interface based desktop client on Windows, and ultimately it's the same process. I like Linux, and I think some of our users would appreciate help with their command line for this, so I will do it with command line, but There's not a better or worse way to do this. By all means, use the desktop client if you're on Windows, if it's available and you feel more comfortable with it. But first, you will have to create a GitHub user account, and a GitHub user account is free. So we assume that you're logged into GitHub under your account, and you're ready to find an issue for unitaryHACK in a participating project, as are listed on unitaryhack.dev on the web, and you would like to contribute to the repository and hopefully win a bounty. So first of all, they won't necessarily be this same sticker color, but if you look at these labels or stickers, actually labels, you should see a label on participating repositories that says unitaryHACK-bounty. These are the issues in the issue list that have bounties attached to them, which are appropriate to work on for the hackathon. Of course, you can work on other issues; they won't be bountied. But in terms of general participation in quantum open source maintainers are very happy to have the help they can get from enthusiastic users on the web who take it upon themselves to contribute to these open source projects, which, like the crack or QRAC simulator, often are just the result of one or a handful of developers' dedicated work for free on the web, licensed freely to the world, basically out of the goodness of their heart. So we always appreciate the help, and by all means, don't feel shy. Also, after the hackathon ends, about finding issues to contribute to in open source repositories, both quantum and otherwise. But here in the issues list, you will find unitaryHACK bounty issues. We can click on one of them. Hopefully the maintainers have given you enough details to get you started on the information you're going to need to fulfill the bounty. There may be a template for opening new issues or opening new pull requests. But firstly, I want to stress that you should not be shy at all about communicating with maintainers. We're used to it, we hope for it, and you should be clear on the details of anything you need to know in order to know for yourself that you can think of the correct route to close the issue ticket, basically to produce a deliverable, and this increases your chances of successfully closing a PR and winning a bounty. So if any additional details needed on an issue, by all means, if you're logged into GitHub, start communicating with the maintainers right here. You can ask if you can be assigned to an issue. During unitaryHACK, not all maintainers will necessarily assign issues to specific users. Issues are closed and bounties are awarded on the basis of the first issue the first pull request that passes review, that closes the issue and is accepted by the maintainer. And that is entirely up to the maintainer. The maintainers in general are not necessarily associated with Unitary Fund in any way. They're from companies around the world who have kindly decided to participate in unitaryHACK, but always try to communicate early and often. You might not have the issue assigned to you. We can't necessarily promise you that your work isn't going to be preempted by someone else completing the issue in a way that's more acceptable or faster. That's up to the maintainer, but don't be afraid to communicate, although realize that maintainers might have either broader professional commitments or live in different time zones, you might not get an immediate response, but maintainers in general should ultimately respond to queries on the issue ticket and requests for clarification. So if I was assigned to this issue, it won't be possible for you to assign yourself, but it would be if you're a maintainer. A maintainer might assign you. At this point, we come back to the main repo. So this is the original metric app under the Unitary Fund organization. You can grab the code here in this drop-down menu, but honestly, that's not what you want to do in this case. You definitely do not want to be working from, for example, a download zip. And if you're not a maintainer of the repository, you're not going to be able to contribute directly to a local clone of the upstream repository. So the first thing you're actually going to do is hit this fork button in the upper right hand side of the web UI and fork the open source repository, create basically an identical copy or near identical copy of the repository under your own set of repositories as a GitHub user, which you can make changes on, and then open a pull request back upstream to the original repository. So we're going to hit fork. This is my personal username. I can fork this here. We might copy the main branch only. You might prefer not to, depending on the branch structure of the repository. If you want every branch in the original upstream repository, you can uncheck this, and we hit create fork. And it's basically that simple. This will take a few seconds, and then we are taken here to our personal copy of the original repository. Contains all the original code. As I instructed, don't just copy the main branch. It contains all of the various branches on the original metric app repo. From here, this is where we go into code here. This link on the web will allow us to clone the repository locally. Hold on one second, bear with me. So, like I said, there's a good chance that there's a UI-based, a graphical user interface-based desktop client for GitHub if you're on Windows, for example. Here on Linux, I like to use the command line. First of all, you need Git installed, and in the case of common Linux distributions like Ubuntu, you might use your package manager to do something like this: sudo apt install git. I already have Git installed in this case, so we will git clone and paste. Let's see. Paste the address of the repository, and if we hit this, hopefully, yes, we can see we now have a local copy of the repository. We can cd into it, and here is the code. By default, it should be on either main branch or whatever the default branch is of the repository, which is generally where accepted production code lives. From here, once again, either in the graphical user interface or on command line, you're going to want to create a branch. So the branch is where you will work on your particular contribution and particular issue. You should name it something descriptive. But what is the command? Git checkout. Checkout? It's checkout. Pardon. Checkout dash B creates a new branch, and we want to name it something descriptive. So unitaryHACK issue, and let's say we had an issue ticket number. You could use the issue ticket number. I forget what our issue ticket was there, but say that it's 300. unitaryHACK issue 300, if that is the GitHub issue number, and from here, if we hit enter, you should see switch to a new branch, and the name of your branch. You are now in your own branch. To sync this with upstream, we git push. So git push, first of all, instructs us that we have to create the branch upstream. This will be created upstream on our local fork of the repository, not on the original repository, but ultimately we'll be able to open a pull request back upstream. The reason we create a fork is so that we can create branches to which we have local permissions, that we can do our development work in our own copy of the repository, and then ultimately it's up to the upstream maintainer whether or not they want to accept our work as a solution to a bounty. But we'll follow the helpful message on the command line here: git push, set upstream, origin, and unitaryHACK issue 300. Well, actually, I'm going to avoid entering my credentials, but at this point, you might be prompted for your GitHub username and email address to configure the Git client. There will be a message explaining how to do so. You can enter that on command line, or it'll happen automatically through, well, not automatically, but through a graphical interface workflow on the desktop client. My username would be Wrathful Spatula in this case, but I'm not going to grab my token. Although it's worth mentioning that you will probably actually need to create a GitHub workflow token. Bear with me a second. Here in my settings, if we go to, let's see, your profile, not my profile, but where are settings? Here we are, settings. If we come here to, where is it? I think it's developer options. It's not SSH and GPG keys, but we'd like to create a token so that we can actually use the web-based login. Here, developer settings. It's the last setting. And here in personal access tokens, we can create a classic token. This is my token, which is a secret, which I am avoid showing you, and we can generate a new token. But this is basically a long string of seemingly random characters that represents your, it's like a password, but it's not a password. And part of the reason for this level of indirection from a password is that tokens are disposable. They expire in a reasonably short window, so you can see that, for example, my token will expire. This is about a week from today, but they're short-lived, and that way, if they're compromised, if you accidentally expose any secrets on the web, first of all, you can immediately chuck out your token and create a new one. You can also restrict specific permissions on the token, and you can have different tokens for different permissions. But you're going to want a token with the ability to actually commit to your repositories. If we come back here to the command line, let's see. So we have forked the repository. We have created a branch. We would push that when we commit. Now it's worth talking about how we actually close a pull request, or rather open a pull request to hopefully have it closed by the maintainer for winning a bounty. But back here on metric app, this is my locally forked copy of the repository. And if we click here into pull requests, let's see, we can make a new pull request. And from here, you'll have the option to compare even across forks. So the base repository in this case, it should automatically default to the original repository, as it does here, Unitary Fund / metric app. And you follow the instructions from the maintainer. They might have a separate development branch staged before default main, or they might want you to commit on main. That's up to the policies of the repository. But my repository is here, Wrathful Spatula and Clone, and I can choose any branch that I'd like to use to open a pull request. If, for example, I choose this, this was just a random branch in the repository, but we will click the Create Pull Request button, and here in the web interface, you'll have the option to request reviewers if any are available from the maintainer, and participation in your contribution to GitHub. Add a descriptive title. You probably want to link it to the issue, or at least mention the issue with the $. In the text, you can link various issue tickets or pull requests with a direct reference and a link. This is what I was talking about with the GitHub issue number. There might be a template for exactly the information you need to fill out for opening a pull request. You write your description here, you click Create Pull Request. That is basically it until a maintainer responds to you, but I want to reiterate, like I said earlier in the video, expect criticism at this point, and it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Of course, that criticism should be respectful. I expect that it will be with our set of maintainers, but realize that part of the process of a live for real pull request on GitHub in open source is that this might be the one opportunity maintainers really have to make sure that your code is absolutely letter perfect and to standard before it's accepted into the underlying code base. So if there are multiple rounds of requests to make changes, realize that the maintainers are speaking with you and giving you this criticism because they want to work with you and they want to accept your pull request and they want to give you the bounty. But various projects will have their own standards. They won't be the same across all projects. And your code, understandably, as a first-time contributor, might not be perfectly up to the standard that maintainers hope for at first. They will work with you to get it there. That's basically it. Be prepared for an intense review at the end of your contribution. But from there, the maintainer will close the relevant issue, merge your pull request, and you'll be awarded a bounty. Congrats. So we hope that you check us out on the web, join us on the Unitary Fund Discord server, make your first contribution to open source and specifically quantum open source, and have it function in real life quantum open source software, so to speak, that could be used by thousands of people around the world, and win some money doing it. So we'll see you at UnitaryHACK, and have a great time. Thank you.